Hi everybody, I'm here today with my good friend Eva Stern, who's a great violist and wonderful Pilates instructor. Today we're going to talk about awareness of tension in the body and go through a few exercises to alleviate that tension.
Great, and yes, and all of the exercises that we're going to do today have to do with breathing. So whenever I teach a Pilates class or work with an individual on Pilates, the first order of business that I take care of has to do with how we breathe, because it's so important. And I find that the exercises that we're about to do are wonderful for feeling centered and a sense of pliability and elasticity in the body, which is complementary for playing an instrument.
Yes.
So, the first thing to do is to feel what it's like to breathe into our bellies. So, go ahead and put your hand on your belly. And all you're going to do is just take an inhale and notice whether your belly expands. So we're breathing in through the nose and we're exhaling through the mouth. So, and you don't want to force this motion. Just notice, does your belly move? And you can introduce an idea of something with elasticity moving. So like a balloon opening, or say stretchy fabric that you stretch and then it goes back together by itself. Just introduce that idea that as your belly expands on the inhale and contracts on the exhale, that there is a pliability and elasticity to that movement. And that's step one, is just to feel what's going on there. Now, when we do Pilates exercises, generally speaking, to create stability through our abdomen and strengthen our abdominal muscles, we pull our navel in towards our spine.
Yes.
So let's just feel what that's like for a moment. So imagine you have a string in the back of your navel pulling back towards your spine. And so it's like this. Here's my belly, just relaxed, hanging out. Now I'm pulling that imaginary string back in.
Okay.
And so just do that a couple of times. It might help, either to have your hand on your belly, you can have it by your side. So you're pulling in, and then just let it relax. And something that I like to think about with this, because sometimes people feel like, well, I have to do this a lot. I have to pull the belly in like as much as possible. And then can you feel, if you do that, how that makes the body feel rigid? Ugh. Yeah. So we don't want rigidity. We want to find a feeling. I like to liken it to like a trampoline, where the way the trampoline is pulled taut,
right,
there's a good tension to it, but if you bounce into it and then it recoils, that's
right,
the quality that we want, of pulling the belly in just enough where you have that sense of taut,
right,
but also the ability to recoil. So that's the feeling that we're going for there. So do that. Pull your belly in, so it's like you've got your little trampoline going. Now, where do we breathe? The breath now needs to go into the ribs. And what's wonderful about this style of breathing is that it's going to help you gain flexibility through the rib cage and awareness through the rib cage. So one way to do this is, let's go ahead and face this way. So you pull the belly in, and go ahead and take your hands and put them on your ribs. Belly's pulled in just a little bit. And now, when you inhale, see if you can get your ribs to move. Again, without forcing, exhale, the ribs go together. And you might notice that for me, when I inhale, I'm aiming to open the ribs towards the side. Sometimes what happens is that the shoulders can go up on the inhale, so you might have, and we want to try to avoid that. So if you notice that your shoulders are going way up, just maybe make the breath just a little bit smaller. And if your ribs are not moving, then that's fine. Don't force it. That's information right there that you might have some tightness in your rib cage. And you can really, over time, affect change in this just by thinking about how you direct your breath. You could do this by having your hands at different segments of your ribs. Also, if you happen to have a TheraBand, which we do, this is also a wonderful way to do the same exercise, but to get the feedback from an item that has this stretchy elasticity that we're looking for in our body. So we're going to wrap this around our back. And what you want to do is get it around your mid-back so that the band is as flat as possible. Yep. Wrap that thing around there. It's a pain to get it flat sometimes. It likes to bunch up.
Okay.
So there you go. So now that you have this item with elasticity to it on your body, you can really play with the idea of this is the quality of motion that you want to have in your own rib cage as your rib cage expands and contracts as you breathe. So I'm pulling this a little bit so I feel resistance against my own rib cage. Then the same move that we did before, that little pulling your belly in so that it's taut. And then breathing in through your nose. Inhale, and see if you can feel your ribs expand into the TheraBand, and exhale and allow it to contract. You might find that one side feels more open than the other, or you might find that, say, the back feels more open than the side, or something like that. So this is a really great way of creating awareness by just noticing where your inequities are, and we all have them. None of us are absolutely symmetrical in our bodies,
Right.
And so this helps us discover if you're tight somewhere in your rib cage, you can truly use the visualization of sending the breath to where it's tight into your ribs. And this ends up being great for developing that elastic quality of the breath, and it relaxes the muscles of the body. I know when I do this, after several breaths worth, my back feels more open, my shoulders feel more relaxed, and I feel more centered. So it's very valuable. So you do a few breaths there, and with the band, you can also play around with putting it at different levels of your rib cage. Something I find quite often is that people tend to have less awareness of the lower area of the rib cage. So say if you go down there at the bottom of the ribs, yeah, and then take a few breaths there and notice if you feel any movement of your ribs into the TheraBand at this level. Now again, if you don't, that's okay. That's just information that you can start to think, well, what do I have to do to introduce that idea of movement to that level of your ribs? So this is just it's a good tool to give you feedback about your own breathing. So, okay, we're done with these for now. We could also do a few simple movements in conjunction with this breathing in order to bring our breath to areas that might be a bit sticky in our body. So the first one is going to be bending to the side. So to start off, just feel yourself centered on both feet. Your spine is nice and stacked, one vertebra on top of the other, and your head is nicely balanced on top of the spine. So then the move here is going to be a side bend. And what I want to say about the side bend is that even though you're shortening the side that you're bending towards, you don't want to collapse it. So this is collapsing it. You see how I'm kind of falling into my hip here. We want to create length on the side that you're bending towards. So it's an up and over kind of feeling. And when you go up and over, that means that the ribs that are expanding, that they open like a fan. So it's a different feeling than if you kind of fall over like that. So here we go. We're going to pull the belly in a little bit, bend to the side, and do you feel how your ribs have opened up like a fan here?
Yes.
Okay, take a few breaths here. So the breath is now more naturally going to go to that side. And we're creating a little bit of compression on the side that we're bending towards. So you can still feel some breath into that side. Couple breaths there. And then at the end of your exhale, straighten out. And take a moment just to notice if you feel any difference on the two sides. Usually for me, I feel a little bit more open on the side that
was stretched a bit.
That was stretched a bit. So, okay, we're going to do the other side so that we walk out of here sort of even, hopefully. So here we go, up and over. So even though you're bending into this side, there's length to it, and these ribs are opening. And then take a few breaths. So you might notice that the two sides feel a little different. Do you notice that the two sides feel a little different? Normal, especially for those of us, trombone, viola, who play instruments that are so asymmetrical. I know for me, my left ribs are tighter than the right. That's just how it is. And so I take particular care to breathe into my left ribs. And at the end of the exhale, come on up. You roll your shoulders a few times. And by creating that expansion through the rib cage, that creates a really nice surface on which the shoulders can just relax down upon. So next, we're going to do a little bit of rotation. I know for myself and for a lot of people who I work with in Pilates, when they're feeling any tension in the back or tightness in the breathing, people love rotation because it's a feeling of kind of wringing yourself out like a towel, and then just everything moves a little bit better. Wringing yourself out like a sponge. So that's the imagery that I like to use for this exercise. So what we're going to do is, once again, it's a little bit of this belly pulling in idea, and we'll rotate to the left first. Why not? So here we go. You're going to start by turning your head. You turn your head, the belly's pulling in, and imagine that as you turn, the belly is the center, and you're wringing out a sponge. So now you're twisting your rib cage, you're twisting your lungs, you're looking back, and as you come back to the center, starting from your belly and going up, and your head is the last, imagine that that sponge is now becoming plump again. It's refilling with water. So what you just did was you provided some compression for yourself in your body. You compressed by rotating, and then came back to give your body a little bit more of an opportunity to fill up with air in an elastic sort of way. So let's go to the other side. So you start by looking to the right, and you can think as you rotate of your spine turning around like a barbershop pole. Another way that I like to think of that, the belly's pulled in, you come back around. If you think of those garden art things, those spiral deals that you see like blowing in the wind, they kind of spiral up and up and up and up. That's how I like to think of the spine when rotating. So that there's a sequence to the spine that makes sense when you're doing the rotation. So with all of these exercises, with the side bends and with the rotation, I might repeat them, 2 or 3 times, that kind of thing, and then feel the results at the end. So after having done all of these things, breathing into the belly, breathing into the ribs, side bend, rotation, the final result is just to breathe and notice how you might feel different.
Right.
At this point, I'm not doing anything special anymore. I'm not trying to specifically send the breath into the belly, into the ribs. I'm more just noticing, well, does my breath feel more open?
Yes.
And the hope is yes.
Yes.
So this is a simple grouping of exercises that is wonderful because you could do it before you practice, before you perform. You could do it at the grocery store. Like, you could do them anywhere just to get yourself feeling a bit more energized, a bit more springy and pliable, and more centered.
That is such great advice for centering and creating awareness and pliability in your whole breathing apparatus. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.